Welcome to Digital Asset News. Take your top stories in cryptocurrency and digital assets and break them down to bite-sized pieces. Today, we got some stories about warnings. First up, Fed Chair Jerome Powell warns of unsustainable budget as the U.S. national debt crosses $26 trillion. This is the exact same thing he said 7 months ago and 1 year ago. Also, the U.S. Drug Agency, or DEA, failed to properly oversee crypto investigations, the Department of Justice report, and the World Economic Forum released their technology pioneers of the year 2020, and we already know that Chainlink is on there, but there's a couple other entries which are pretty interesting. Before we get into that, let's take a look at the market. So Bitcoin doing what it always does, just pretty much trading sideways, not too much action, although over the last 7 days, negative 4.7%, but as of the last 24 hours, just hanging around the 9350, 9400 level. Ethereum, not too bad. 230. Hopefully can go up to reach that 244, 250 area. Tether's Tether. XRP is XRP. And nothing really jumps out at me. Although Chainlink has a little bit of bump, and probably due to that World Economic Forum mention that we're going to talk about at the last section of today's video. But nothing really out there. Let's jump into today's stories. First up, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell warns of unsustainable budget as the U.S. national debt crosses $26 trillion. I never thought I would see that high, but hey, here we are. So this was actually a Senate hearing committee a couple of days ago. Republicans just laid it out and said, look, we've been doing this for a long time, and we cannot keep continuing to doing this unsustainable growth. But the funny thing was, is when I tried to actually find the recording from yesterday, I put in unsustainable Jerome Powell, and I saw that he had actually mentioned this 7 months ago, 1 year ago, and I'm pretty sure he's probably mentioned it before then, just hasn't been recorded publicly. So it's an interesting position that he's in right now because he's doing all that he can as far as the Fed chairman, but really what he's looking at is like, wow, this is great short term, long term, this is going to be bad news. And that might be what he thinks. That's what I think. But we'll take a look here. So the Federal Reserve Chairman testified before the Senate Banking Committee on Tuesday, while acknowledging that the federal spending is giving the economy a short-term boost during the coronavirus pandemic. He warned Congress that the U.S. economy faces a deep downturn with significant uncertainty about the timing and strength of a recovery. And this is what was the interesting part, because he pretty much calls out the investors and said he suggested that investors should not overreact to surprisingly good economic data, such as the May retail sales report. And when he talks about this, and so he says, don't overreact. And there's significant uncertainty, and we're on an unsustainable path. So what happened with the market? Did they, take his sage advice and be like, oh, sounds like pretty good? No, not really. So the S&P 500 said, we don't care. And this is a 5-day, and it pretty much just went trucking along. Here's our 1 day. Let's see what's happening. Looked like it opened up at 3,098, pushed a little bit higher, and then a little bit slump here. But over 5 days, looking pretty good. Dow Jones, same type of thing. Not really caring. Russell 2000, same thing, actually going up. So traditional markets, as you look at them and just say, well, that's funny because, the Fed's just going to step in. Well, the chairman is saying, look, this is unsustainable. And the traditional market's just like, we don't care because we know you're not going to reverse course. You're going to keep pumping in that money. You're going to keep pumping on those machines to make the money get printed. So we don't care. There is no repercussions for our actions. We're just going to keep going. However, I do believe at some point, maybe not today, obviously, or tomorrow or 6 months from now, but if we look down 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, what does that mean for the future? Not just the future us, but the future children and grandchildren. What's going to happen with them? Because we are not just printing money, we're printing debt. Let me know what you think in the comments section, because personally, I don't see it as really going stellar. Moving on. So he also states this: the United States federal budget has been on an unsustainable path for years now. The debt is growing faster than the economy, so debt to GDP is rising. That is by definition unsustainable. And again, he was saying that over a year ago. The Congressional Budget Office said that U.S. deficit soared to $1.9 trillion for the first 8 months of the fiscal year and is expected to hit a record $3.7 trillion this year. The current record for a fiscal year deficit is $1.4 trillion, which was set in 2009. So congratulations, 2020. We are the winners of the most debt. Moving on. States here, every generation is entitled, or actually this is what Jerome Powell says. He says, every generation is entitled to spend what it wants to spend on the things it thinks it needs, but it really ought to pay for them in some sense rather than passing the bill on to the kids. Powell continued, over time, future generations, again, our kids and grandkids, their tax dollars will be going to servicing the debt that we incurred to buy the stuff we wanted when we were in charge. And that's exactly what's happening right now. It just seems like there is no stopping. They just announced that they're going to buy bonds. They're going to buy corporate debt. They're going to buy pretty much everything out there that is in the negative. And it seems like again, there's no repercussions. Any kind of bad decision that a big corporation has made doesn't really matter. So free market, maybe. It doesn't seem so, but who knows? Anyhow, my final thoughts are this. If you're a Gen Xer, Gen Zer, or millennial, and you haven't invested just even a little bit into cryptocurrency and digital assets, maybe now's the time, because I cannot tell you what's going to happen with the dollar. I mean, I really can't tell you anything because I'm not Nostradamus. I have no crystal ball. But I can tell you that when I look towards the future and I can see what could potentially happen, I see cryptocurrency and digital assets a major factor moving forward. But that's just me. Let me know if you agree in the comments section. Let's move on to our next story. Next up, U.S. Drug Agency failed to properly oversee crypto investigations, the Department of Justice report. And this is from our friends at the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency. And this is building on top of a story that we covered a couple weeks ago, where Coinbase is actually going to be working with the DEA and the IRS to give them some sort of analytic data from them. It states here, Bitcoin and crypto entrepreneur Matt Odell said after the block report, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency and the IRS intended to buy licenses from Coinbase for an analytics platform called Coinbase Analytics, and that is going on right now. So that was one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why I took down my affiliate links for Coinbase. That and their constant outages and pretty much horrible customer service. If you try to get a hold of somebody at Coinbase, good luck. Anyhow, let's take a look at this report. So, moving down, the DEA's management of virtual currency-related activities was insufficient due to inadequate headquarters management, lack of policies, inadequate internal control procedures, insufficient supervisory oversight, and lack of training for digital currency activities, the Inspector General wrote. But the DEA did not adapt itself to these new challenges. According to the IG report, its record-keeping was so poor that investigators struggled to match up transaction information with activities. Even its own agents' foul play did not prompt the DEA into action. Former DEA agent Carl Mark Force IV, that's a good name, Carl Force IV, stole $700,000 in Bitcoin during the investigation and takedown of the Silk Road market, but 2 years later, agencies still lacked adequate crypto control. So this is a pretty interesting, quick article. So I had to take a look at the actual report that was sent out by the OIG, and this is heavily redacted for public use or public release, but there were some interesting tidbits, and it pretty much lines up with the actual article that was here. So this is a 72-page report. Let me just scroll down to find the good stuff. So I found this little piece here interesting. It says, according to a DEA official, in the past few years, the DEA has seen an exponential increase in cases that involve virtual currency. I would only assume so. I mean, look, virtual currency or cryptocurrency, digital assets have only been around for since 2009. So to see an exponential increase, I would think that would actually happen. But the real question is not has it increased, because you can double, pretty quickly. You can go from one case to two, and you've just doubled your cases, correct? So my question is, how many of these cases of money laundering or DTOs, drug trafficking organizations, are engaged in cryptocurrency digital assets? I mean, is it 10% of all the different crimes they're seeing? Is it 100%? I'm betting on the fact that it's very low. However, they're making a huge deal about it because they don't understand it and they're trying to wrap their hands around it. I personally believe that the number one favorite choice for the bad guys is probably fiat and probably the US dollar. And before 2009, that's what they were using. And they got away with it for quite a long time. So when they're going to sit here and go, oh, well, this is going to be the new thing and that's all they're going to use, I just don't see that happening. I think it's going to happen. But at the extent to which they were talking about it, I just think could be a little bit misguided. But let me know what you think in the comments section. Let's continue. It says, during our review of virtual currency activities in the AGEOs, the Attorney General exempted operations, we found that the DEA's management of virtual currency-related activities was insufficient due to inadequate headquarters management, lack of policies, training, all the things that we just talked about before. This deficiency occurred more than 2 years. The former DEA special agent of stealing $700,000, exactly what we just talked about in the previous article. So I just want to make sure that everything matched up with what was actually sent out to the public and what was actually reported. So here we can see it definitely was. Let's move down. So the AGEO, Attorney General Exempt in Operations Financial Activities, it says, because of the potential for fraud, waste, and abuse, the DEA's actions to conduct undercover money laundering transactions and acquire, collect, and use proceeds from these undercover activities requires strong internal controls, which they state was inadequate, such as complete financial records and an auditable trail of money movement. But here's the thing with cryptocurrency digital assets. Isn't there always a trail? I mean, that's the whole point of the blockchain. It's pretty much an open type of thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments section. But I mean, there's certain ways around it. But isn't that the whole process of blockchain and being able to be open and transparent? Unless they're using Monero or whatever, some type of privacy coin. So that's an interesting comment they made there. And then lastly, this piece was pretty interesting. It said the DEA relied on an independent contractor to perform reconciliations of all AGEO-related financial activities and to compile monthly accounting records for each AGEO. Gosh, so many acronyms, like I'm back in the Army. This process was the cornerstone of the DEA's AGEO financial management and oversight process, and the independent contractor has performed this accounting activity for more than 20 years. The DEA places great value in the work. We found the contractor had successfully accounted for the banking activities of everything that we reviewed, and we found no instances of unaccounted funds. So this guy did his job perfectly. Here was the problem. We also found that the independent contractor did not always receive complete details about the financial transactions that occurred. This resulted in inconsistent record keeping, improper accounting entries, and an inadequate audit trail within the financial records. Therefore, we cannot always reconcile the independent contractor's records with the specific transaction information. So just keeping track of cryptocurrency digital assets was hard enough for this governmental agency. How hard is it going to be for you and your taxes? Because those are coming up on July 15th. Just saying. So I thought this is a pretty interesting article, but it just goes to show you that all these things that are going on, even the government doesn't understand really how to track it, how to do anything. And it's probably the whole big reason for which they've actually looked at Coinbase and said, hey, we need help. We need all your information that you have. So, we'd like to purchase that Coinbase analytics from you. So just a thought. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's move on to our last article. So lastly, World Economic Forum's Technology Pioneers of 2020. I thought this wasn't a big story because I just thought it was like another awards show, essentially. Like, okay, pioneers, you come up, you get an award, congratulations, good job. Off you go. But when I took a look at the Economic Forum itself, it's huge and it's super important for what happens. So before I show you what it's all about, and I think how important it is for the participants that actually are able to go there, I just want to talk to you and just show you exactly who was actually a part of this whole group. So, of course, Chainlink. And if you don't know about Chainlink, I actually did a beginner's video which goes over, blockchain and Bitcoin, smart contracts, and what's an Oracle or Chainlink, and why it's going to be so massively important. So that just pretty much lays the basics for, why or what's going on. If you want to take a deeper dive into it, or actually more towards the investment side, take a look at Crazy for Cryptos, Digital Dave. He's one of those guys that really turned me on to Chainlink, to the whole thing about how big it could potentially be. He's been talking about it for months and months, over a year now, I think. And so I will link that video in the last part of this video, and you can check it out. But let's jump back real quick to the article. So yeah, Chainlink was one of those cryptocurrency companies that was looked at and said, hey, this is an emerging superpower potentially as far as technology and economics. Another company called Elliptic, protecting businesses against financial crime and crypto. I thought that was interesting. MAKR DAO from Denmark, inclusive and transparent platform for economic empowerment in the blockchain. And also Lightning Labs. or the Lightning Network for faster, cheaper global digital payments. So you can see that there was some pretty big power players here. But the thing that, again, what I was thinking about as far as this forum, I just thought it was like, congratulations, you won it. But this video pretty much lays it out, like how important it is to be a part of this group. So the first 14 seconds really just lays it all out.
We grow bones from stem cells for skeletal reconstruction.
And turn trash into usable high-engineered material. We do crowdsourced data mining and machine learning.
Achieving human-level AI.
Yeah, so these are like not just groups or companies who are doing, great things, but really advancing the entire race forward into what things can actually be possible and are actually out there. So when I saw this, I'm like, okay, this is more of a bigger thing than just like some kind of awards show. Next up, you're going to hear from Murat Simons, and hopefully I said it right, but he is the managing director of the World Economic Forum and head of the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So just so you know who this guy is, he pretty much puts the whole thing together, or well, part of it anyhow. But he started his career in 1989 as a Silicon Valley-based engineer, focusing on automating semiconductor chip manufacturing. In 94, he joined a startup called Technicron Software, which digitalized Wall Street by creating an integrated real-time trader workstation. 97, he went to work for Tibco. It's a data analytics software company and responsible for customer and partner-facing global field operations. Also director and board member of Tibco Software, servicing the U.S. federal government. He's been involved in all the firsts, right? eBay, Amazon, Yahoo, build their e-commerce portals, lay the foundation for real-time track and trace operations for logistics, work with national intelligence agencies for cyber attacks, work with manufacturing companies to identify supply chain issues before they happen. So when we're talking about a guy who's kind of put things together, this is the gentleman who can do that, and actually what I would call a connector. He connects people in a way that they can start to flourish because they meet other people to make them bigger than what they actually are. And this is going to make sense in a second.
Technology is playing an increasingly important role in all aspects of society, and new technologies can provide solutions to many of the problems we're facing today. The World Economic Forum serves its mission by engaging not only with leaders of today, but with leaders of tomorrow. And the Technology Pioneers community represents a very important part of this leadership. Each year we select these companies on the strength of their innovation and their ability to impact business and society.
So again, these are big type of companies, but when he talks about we've selected these companies to make an impact on the world and society, what other types of companies was he talking about in the past? Well, other ones have been like Airbnb, Google, Kickstarter, Mozilla, Planeteer Technology, Spotify, Twitter, Wikimedia. I mean, all the big names that you hear about now. So the ones that we just talked about, where we talked about Lightning Labs, MAKR DAO, and we also Chainlink, another one for security. That's an exclusive club. So what makes this so great about being a part of it? It's not just about being a part of this organization or being invited there. It's the contacts that you make, and it's the things that you actually find out and can propel you forward. In business, it's not about what you know. Nobody cares about what you know. Nobody cares about your idea. Well, listen, unless you're in 2017 and wrote a great white paper, then you could have billions. But in reality, it's really about not what you know, it's who you know.
This program represents a chance for technology pioneers to be propelled onto the world stage, a unique opportunity to interact with key decision makers and stakeholders to share their innovative and high-impact ideas.
The class is outstanding. It gives me exposure to satellite companies, to genomics companies, to areas that sort of really push us and also give us a sense for what's coming.
It was very good to share experience with fellow tech pioneers and hear their thoughts because they are all going through very similar phases.
My personal hope would be to help them scale while contributing to the forum's mission to improve the state of the world. By engaging with them early on, we can truly amplify their potential for impact.
So now do you see why it's so important that these companies, these entities, these CEOs, these people of industry are all in the same place and they're all interacting? Because once you get together like that, you start to meet those movers and shakers, and not just that, but to get ideas to spring off, everything starts to open up, and that's really how business works and how things grow. Anyhow, that's it for today's video. So I want to say thanks for sticking with me. Really appreciate it. A little bit longer, but hopefully I can cut that down in editing. And before we take off, I want to say thanks to all my supporters. So level ones, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for donating a couple dollars. It goes to help me, goes to help the channel. Really appreciate it. Level twos, hey, shout out. All Right Soft, Wen Mullet, myself, who else? Dave Plummer, Grant Sharman, Bruce Wood, Baking Benjamins, Noel Flippin Vegas, Martin Lewin, Michael Ralph, William Howell, Crazy Crypto Canuck, Tessie Ryusaki Positive, Fire Swing Golf, JC Durex, Crypto Veritas, John Miller, The Office, Elmerg, Michael Jeffrey, The Kell Show, Mage Research, and finally Terry Prosperi, XRP Carolina, Whatever, and AE. And also as a reminder, my email is dandigitalassetnews with an S at Gmail. There's a scammer posing as dandigitalassetnew@gmail, and he's going to try to get you to sign up for some kind of goofy trading something or other. He's just a scammer, so just delete his email. And that's it. So I want to say thanks again, and I'll see you.